Welcome to another episode of Rich Politics with me, your host, Richard Taylor, and I'm delighted to have on the show tonight James Delingpole, who is a British author and commentator and has written several books, including Welcome to Obamaland, 365 Ways to Drive a Liberal Crazy. I do like the sounds of that. And Watermelons. He's also the host of one of the best podcasts out there, The World of Delingpod. James, welcome to Rich Politics. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. And I thought the best way to start is, who is James Delingpole?
Yeah, that's a really good question.
We've heard a lot about you. We see you on social media. You know, you've got a massive following. I mean, who is James Delingpole?
Yeah, I think that the James Delingpole that you're meeting today is very different from the James Delingpole of a few years ago. I mean, not totally. I went to university, bizarrely, with David Cameron and Boris Johnson, both of whom I knew pretty well. And I tried to get a job on my careers advisor's advice in the city. They wouldn't have me. And so as a fallback position, I went into journalism, which actually was probably a good thing, because I'm not really suited to doing a proper job. I don't like obeying orders. I really don't. I don't like being bossed around by people who I think are more stupid than me. I'm a gadfly. I come from the Midlands. My father is from Birmingham, and my mother is from the Black Country. Well, you wouldn't necessarily guess it from my accent, nor would you guess my Welsh heritage.
Well, it's funny you say that, because my wife is from Birmingham, and my kids were born in the Black Country, most of them, apart from my daughter. So yeah, we've got a connection there as well. But no, you certainly don't have a Welsh accent, that's for sure.
No, and occasionally I can say all right
from Birmingham,
all right, Akid, but that accent was sort of knocked out of me, or maybe I knocked it out of myself. I think the reason I talk the way I do now was partly as a sort of trolling exercise. I could see the way the country was going. I could see the kind of the chippiness and this all the nonsense, and I thought, what could be more provocative than having a kind of a poshish accent? Anyway, so there again, that's an example of I think it was my upbringing. Both my father and my mother are massive piss takers, as people from the Midlands generally are, and yeah. I've never taken anything too seriously, which I think is a good, again, for a journalist, you don't want to respect the status quo too much. You want to question it all the time. And so I was motivated by inability to get another job, a proper job, by an ability. I'm quite good at writing. I'm naturally curious. I'm interested in people. I really am genuine. I know everyone says that on their CV, you know, and what do you like to do? Oh, I like working with people, but I do find people genuinely fascinating. And I mean, I'm curious.
A friend of mine told me once, people are like walk-in libraries. You know, what you discover from their lives is quite extraordinary. And we have a mutual friend in Lawrence Fox who I've spoken to about you, and he said, Rich, he's a fantastic guy. So you're an interesting man. So your education then shaped kind of the way you went, direction you went in. So what got you into broadcast and doing journalism and media? What was it for you that got you into this kind of whole political commentary as well? Because you've got a lot to say, haven't you?
I have got a lot to say. It's weird. I know pretty much what I think about everything. And the reason I do, I think, is that, look, just going back, I was really, really lucky to have gone to a university and been taught by people who really trained my brain. I mean, you know, most of us go to university to get laid, get pissed, maybe get a degree that will get us on the career ladder. But actually, what universities are really for is enabling you to make that intellectual, or they used to be anyway, to make the intellectual leap from the kind of spoon feeding you get at school to be able to think for yourself, to be able to look at the world anew and understand it. I was really lucky in that I had a tutor, a guy called Peter Conrad, who was he was brilliant. We used to, at the beginning of each term, he'd say, you know, well, I'm not going to try and do his accent. He came from Tasmania. He said, I'm supposed to give you these lecture lists, but, you know, really, why bother going to lectures when you can you imagine hearing that from your tutor? Why bother going to lectures? And he said, why bother going to lectures when you can read the critical textbooks? And he said, And why read the critical textbooks when you can just read the texts? So he kind of gave us carte blanche to come up with whatever bollocks theory we wanted to about Shakespeare or Spencer or whatever. But woe betide you if your argument was not well constructed, well thought through, and well backed up. You were toast. Your life would be miserable. But if you got it right, well, then he would be grudgingly admiring. And it stood me in good stead for later on, because I can approach any issue and look at it and think, well, what's the correct line on this? What's the intelligent line? Not what everyone else is saying, but what's the really true line?
Yeah,
so I've applied that in journalism.
Yeah. I mean, I followed some of your stuff, a lot of your stuff actually, because it's out there. People can, by the way, follow James Delingpole. Make sure you follow the podcast and subscribe to his YouTube channel as well. I want to talk a little bit about how you've developed over those years then, and to become the man you are today. And is the man you are today, if you look back, if the boy that you were looked at the man you were today, would he be happy?
No. Well, no, I think he would be, after I'd explained it to him. I think I might have to take him aside and say, look, it may look really shit, but actually, there are pluses. Let me explain.
Yeah, I was about to say, there's got to be some good parts in that, James.
So I had a reasonably privileged education. I went to prep school. I've been at boarding school all my school life. So boarding school, and then I went to Oxford. So yeah, I sort of rubbed shoulders with the establishment, but I'm not really establishment. But when I was younger, when I was about 11, I wanted to be lots of things. I wanted to be an archaeologist. I wanted to be in the SAS, and I wanted to be a famous writer. And so I'd write all these elaborate short stories, and these stories, and they were always featuring Sir James Delingpole or Lord James Delingpole. So I suppose that I wanted to be a member of the establishment in those days, and this continued when I went up to Oxford. I felt very conscious that that I was not yet part of the smart set that I wanted to be part of, and I wanted to be accepted. And it was a bit like Brideshead Revisited. I was Charles Ryder, and I was looking for my Sebastian so I could go and drink champagne in his stately home and stuff.
Well, it's this because even your Twitter handle is the Knight Commander of the Garter of James Delingpole, isn't it?
But that'll be satire. That'll be that. Yeah, Knight Commander of the Garter was because that was the title given by the Queen, apparently, to Tony Blair.
Well, yeah, my Twitter account says the same. I've renamed myself Sir Richard Taylor, and it's quite interesting. It's quite funny. Some of my viewers will know this. Some people literally who've just started following me as well, new followers, generally think I've got a knighthood, and I've had to explain to them in private messages, I'm taking the piss. This is simply because if Tony Blair, a war criminal, can get one, then I can give myself one. I mean, so it is satire, isn't it?
Yes, but it's interesting. Actually, picking up on that point. My younger self might have thought that it would be wrong to appropriate titles that you do not have. It's a bit like, the worst thing you could do would be giving yourself a medal, wouldn't it? Like a VC. Yeah, that would be bad, because to get a VC, you've pretty much got most of the VCs are awarded posthumously or close to posthumously. But actually now my faith in the establishment system and all the attendant baubles and gongs and things, my opinion of the establishment is so low. I think it is absolutely ripe for piss taking and disrespect. Yeah. Look, any vestigial admiration I had for the Queen completely went out of the window when she gave the honor of Knight Commander of the Garter to a man who was the man who has done more than anything to ruin Britain in the last 50 years. Blair is satanic. He is a servant of Satan, and I mean that quite literally. He's destroyed this country. The idea that just because he was prime minister, if what are we saying, if Jimmy Savile had been prime minister, or if I don't know, Harold Shipman or Fred West had been prime minister, they too would have been made Knight Commanders of the Garter. It makes no sense. You cannot just give gongs out because somebody's served time in a particular office. It's about merit.
Yeah.
And awards for people who have not done anything meritorious are wrong. And our system does this all the time. You look at the New Year's honours list, and you look at the people who get the gongs. Some of them get it because they're the right ethnicity and they want to get a few kind of, black people.
They got to meet the
gongs.
Diversity quota of their
Diversity quota.
Yeah.
And the rest are scumbags. I mean, look at this year's New Year's on like Sir Chris Whitty, the guy who was responsible for the vaccine rollout, which has probably killed a number of children from myocarditis and stuff. You get a knighthood for that, right? Okay. So if I kill lots of people, will I get an even bigger knighthood? Yeah. How does that work?
Yeah, well, Tony Blair, I mean, look, he's a war criminal. I hold him responsible for the mess we're in Wales here because, of course, he was the one who put devolution in motion here in Wales, which has been an absolute disaster by every measurable count you can look at. The NHS, education, all of it. It's been an absolute abject failure.
I tell you, I was at a wedding in Wales once, in Abergavenny.
That's where I live. That's my hometown where I live now.
I love that part. Abergavenny is beautiful. I love swimming in the Usk. It's great. And so I went to this very posh wedding, and there was it had a ha-ha. You know what a ha-ha is?
No, explain to me. Okay.
A ha-ha is a wall which with a ditch at the bottom, which divides your lawn from your parkland beyond, so that the eye is deceived into thinking that the lawn is contiguous with the landscape beyond. But what the ha-ha does, what the ditch does, is keep out the sheep that are grazing picturesquely beyond. Anyway, so I was wandering across the lawn in the dark back to the wedding marquee where the thing was, and there were the lights illuminating the house and blinding me, and suddenly the earth disappeared from beneath my feet, and I found myself falling into this ha-ha about 10 feet in the dark, and I had to go to Abergavenny Hospital. And I would never recommend any. I mean, I imagine the one in Abergavenny is one of the better ones. Anyone who has experienced the Welsh NHS will know that you never want to fall ill in Wales ever. It was like they wouldn't give me any painkillers. Eventually, grudgingly, they gave me a paracetamol. Well, I've broken my bloody leg. It really hurt. And then I had two doctors fighting over what to do with me, whether to keep me in overnight or whether to release. It was just awful. Awful.
We've had to live with this. 5 out of 7 of our health boards have been in special measures under this Welsh government, and we've known 2 decades of Welsh Labour. Unfortunately, they've been re-elected every single time. We're stuck in a time warp, I think, sometimes, because culturally people have this Thatcher mentality that you can't vote Conservative or any other party. Not that I would vote Conservative now, but they can't vote for anything else because there's nothing else to vote for. And it's a shame, really. But things are changing. I've got plans as well for Wales. I'll not here to discuss that today. But
please go and take over Wales.
We're looking at it.
Please go and be their new leader.
We're looking at some ideas, James. But listen, we've talked about you as a person. Let's talk about politics then, shall we? Because let's be honest, so much has been going on, hasn't it, this last couple of weeks? We've had all the scandals. We've had the Partygate come out. We've had Boris apologise for something he said he didn't attend, and then he did. The Tories have got a massive rebellion on their hands. We've seen it with vaccine passport votes. First of all, over 100 MPs of his own MPs going against the government. What state is the Tory party in at the moment, James, would you say?
Oh, it's completely wrecked. I think it's not just the Tory party, it's not just the Labour Party, it's the whole political system, the judicial system. Every institution is broken beyond repair, including the institutions that we thought would never break, like the military. They are all completely over. The Church of England, over. The monarchy, over. I can't tell you, and going back to our original discussion, this is the difference between the younger me and the older me. The younger me still thought that politics mattered, that your vote changes things. I've now realized it doesn't, because the system is so utterly corrupt, fails in every single respect, that what's happening now in Westminster is pantomime. That it's not Boris Johnson making the decisions. It's supranational organizations like the World Economic Forum. It's the World Health Organization. It's the United Nations. we talk about the New World Order like it's some kind of future horror coming our way. We're already living in the New World Order. We are already living through global governance. This is what global governance feels like. The pandemic is global governance. It was imposed on Britain, whether we liked it or not. I mean, could we have done the thing that Sweden did and not instituted lockdowns and all the nonsense? I'm not sure, because you look around the world and you see all the governments have behaved in the same way. That every country in the world has a very, very weak leader at best. At worst, a kind of drooling incontinent continent like.
I think you're speaking of Biden, aren't you?
Joe Biden. Boris is by no means the worst. I mean, look at President Bieber of Canada. I mean, imagine, or Scott Morrison in Australia. The really, really weak, useless people are taking their orders from scumbags whose names we often don't know. And they're setting the agenda. So what's happening now in Westminster? People who like Punch and Judy shows, that's fine, but actually it's kind of irrelevant. We've got to destroy it all and rebuild it.
Well, I was going to ask you, James, that's the situation. What are the solutions then? Because, of course, my understanding currently is that we have democratic levers in place where, as you rightly pointed out, your vote doesn't change anything. If that's all we've got and we call it democracy, where the ballot box is where we're meant to change things, what other solutions can we offer people in the light of some of the things you've just shared there? Because it seems a bit of a dark place for us to be in.
Yeah, it is a dark place, which is why I eventually took the white pill and realized that only Christianity is going to save us, because things are so dark. But we have to look on these times as not just a kind of horrible crisis. I mean, I hate to sound like Rahm Emanuel or some kind of lefty, operator like Tony Blair. But even though what we're experiencing now and have experienced for the last 2 years is horrible and really depressing, it is an opportunity to change the world for the better in a way that previous generations have been unable to do, partly because most of us were not aware of the scale of the awfulness and the scale of the corruption. So I sometimes have debates on my London Calling podcast with Tony Blair. Oh, sorry, Toby Young. Toby is still stuck irretrievably, I think, in normie mold, where he imagines that if only the Conservatives find a new leader to replace chaotic Boris, everything will get better. If only we get Liz Truss or somebody, she'll know what to do. It's not like that. The Conservatives aren't conservative. Labour aren't Labour. It's a kind of uniparty enforcing the New World Order agenda.
It's interesting you mentioned Christianity there, because I attend church. I'm a Methodist by practice, but I'm not the best practicing Christian that's out there. I can assure you, my followers know that, but I do profess to be a Christian. I've been speaking to a lot of people, and of course, historically, we know the Conservative Party was founded on Christian principles. Our whole nation was. When you look at it, and it wasn't conservatism, it was Christianity. And I think we've moved away, haven't we, from things like family values and the virtues that Christians would adhere to. We seem to have lost those virtues in this political world now, and everything is political. And the challenge, I think, James, for me, is when you look at the church, which should be given direction, which should be a voice, it should be a moral compass, they've become so liberal and so woke in their ideologies, they don't offer any solutions, do they?
Well, because they don't believe in God, apart from anything else. I mean, I think a lot of, take the Church of England. I think that if you ask a lot of Church of England clerics, do you actually believe that there is this divine entity up there, Father, Son, Holy Ghost? I think a lot of them would go, well, it's a kind of narrative that's evolved over the years, but actually, the important thing is to behave well. Like Christianity is a religion for sort of social workers, and that's all God's really about. It's about doing the right thing. No, it's that they've removed all the spiritual element.
So when you say they believe in the institution of the church as an official body, but not in the spirituality and the life of God and the divine that exists outside of the church, which I believe, because God is everywhere, he's omnipresent. So I mean, I wonder then, James, what's it going to take then for us to really, what can we do to enforce, not enforce, I suppose, to encourage change, to shape our country and to really reclaim really what's been stolen from us?
I think we're already doing it, Rich. I think that if you've been on some of the marches and you've met awake people, isn't it just the most amazing experience? Isn't it just one of the best experiences you've ever had? It's like you finally found your people, your friends, the people, the good people in the world, and we're growing all the time, and we're not taking this nonsense anymore. It's really, look, just as I think it needed the horrors that are happening today to wake us up. And okay, so maybe the growth of the awake movement isn't happening as quickly as we'd like, but it's happening. It's happening. People understand that no, it's not going to make any difference if you vote in Labour next time. The whole system needs.
Yeah, I think I got this. I feel we're living in a post-political world, so politics is not really going, as you've mentioned, not going to change things. And I can go from my own kind of interactions with people, not just on social media, but in my communities and across Wales that I've been talking to, and they say, "Rich, you need to do something. You need to start something." No, I'm not the answer to all of the world's problems. I can assure you, I'll probably create more problems. But there is a sense that people are waking up and they're looking for solutions, they're looking for answers. And I'm like you, I've got to a place where I'm realizing although we use politics as a means to change policy in community and to legislate the things and make people's lives better, apparently, there is another way of doing it. And it's waking people up to the reality that we're in a spiritual battle. Now, this isn't just about legislation and politics. We're in a spiritual battle, good against evil. There's no gray area for me in that. And that fight, for me, it depends, for a lot of people, they're not awakened to that reality. And so they're operating out of a dark side rather than the light side. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Ephesians 6:12. That is almost the key quote from the Bible. For now, it sums up what is going on. This is a battle between good and evil, and you can take it, if you're a non-Christian or whatever, you can take it on a kind of metaphorical level that evil is just people doing bad things, or you can understand it as we Christians do, that this genuinely is the work of the people who are doing this stuff to us are diabolical, and we are, those of us on the good side, of God's children. He doesn't want this stuff to happen, and he's not going to let it happen. So his spirit is filling us, and that's one of the wonderful things about what's happening. Absolutely
fascinating, James. Now, do you want to ask you a question, James? Have you always had faith in the way that you have now, or has this been a recent conversion to something? Or I mean, just out of curiosity, because I was a drug addict. I was a drug addict and went to church, and it changed my life. So I understand the kind of interaction around that. But so is this a new thing for you, or have you always had these beliefs?
I've always I come from a classic C of E family. So went to church Christmas and Easter. I went to boarding schools where you went to chapel 7 days a week and twice on Sundays. So I had laid all the groundwork. I know all the biblical stories, and I got confirmed. But that's how the C of E generally works. You can be a cultural Christian without really buying into the really hardcore religious stuff. And all that's changed is I've suddenly understood the importance of the spiritual, the numinous, that life's got it's really helpful, I think, when you speak to God, when you say your prayers, when you learn the Psalms and stuff like that, when you fill yourself with scripture, it just makes everything. Christians, I used to think that Christians were kind of slightly embarrassing, and let's face it, a lot of Christians are embarrassing, but I think that we shouldn't confuse churchianity with Christianity. I don't like sanctimoniousness at all. I as far as I'm concerned, my Christianity does not stop me having a spliff every night. It does not stop me swearing. It just means that, doing the right thing and being in touch with God. So yeah, it is a fairly new thing. And do you know what? This is weird, but I do feel slightly like I'm on a holy mission from God, that I finally found a sense of purpose in my life, and to bring to spread the word, really. Spread the word.
I mean, I get that sense from your podcast and your stuff that you've been broadcasting. You know, the people you have on you interview, the way that you deliver your speech, you know, your thoughts. I mean, look, our time is almost up. We're almost done half an hour, so I got to keep this half an hour as much as I can. I'm gonna have to get you back on for a part 2 because we haven't covered nowhere near is what I wanted to cover.
You're a great interview. I like you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it very much. Just finally, then, to bring things to a close, James. We've talked about your personal career. I know your upbringing, who you are as a person, a little bit about your politics, what we believe about that. And we've talked a little bit about your personal spiritual journey as well. I mean, what's next for James Delingpole? What are you hopeful for? And what are your plans for the foreseeable future? And how can people stay in touch with what you're doing?
Okay, well, I mean, the Delingpod is not going to go away. In fact, the Delingpod will probably expand. I'll probably I'm going to try and find more channels where I can put it out without getting censored. I'm hoping that people will support me, you know, financially, because I'm pretty much on my own now. I mean, I've pretty much cut loose from the mainstream media, and I've got to earn a living somehow. And yeah, so I'll need the people's support. But I like that model. I like having this direct relationship you have with your supporters. My own. And this is really important. I want to live my best life. I want to live in defiance of all the strictures and impositions and miseries they're imposing on us. So you won't catch me wearing a mask. I mean, possibly if you know, maybe on an airplane I might, but generally, absolutely not. I want to go and do all the things I enjoy doing. You know, riding, for example. I like being on a horse. That makes me happy. Lots of that. So hanging out with good people, not taking any shit from the man. I think that is it's almost more important than anything we do politically. Like what my brother's done, Dick Delingpole, and his libertarian drinks, spreading across the country like wildfire. That has probably done more to change the country for the good than anything Tony Blair did, or David Cameron did, or Boris Johnson did. You know, Dick's a hero, and he's improved the life of the country as a result of those libertarian drinks.
Well, James, listen, it's been an absolute delight having you on. I can't wait to get you back on, because I want to dig deeper on some of the things you've said. There's a lot in there, and I really want to unpack, because time's against us, and you know what these platforms are like. But folks, please make sure you follow James Delingpole. He is, of course, the British author and commentator. He has written several books, as I mentioned, including Welcome to Obamaland, 365 Ways to Drive a Liberal Crazy, and Watermelons. And of course, don't forget his worldwide beating podcast. That's the World of Delingpod as well. James, thank you so much, and I hope to catch you next time you're on Rich Politics.
Thank you, Rich. Sir Richard, sorry.